Another one of these little short international poems. New Year's Day in San Miguel. From my hotel room, I look down into gardens, into courtyards of people living side by side, at geraniums, hibiscus, poinsettias like blood stars, at palms and a giant mimosa, the small poodle humping its large companion. I'm thinking about the view into this room when a rooster tells the whole damn neighborhood about the guy wandering naked in number 53. Time for about two more, maybe one. Aberdeen, there's an epigraph. We're the people who believe in God, guns, and Chevrolets. Speaker at a timber rally in Aberdeen, Washington, early 1990s. 50 years since they closed the whorehouses down, but when you walk the streets, it could have been yesterday. Still a hard-ass lumber town whose main export is tough times, as much a given as the rain. Houses with faded paint bunched together on small treeless lots like old nags put out to pasture. Their silence a saw blade stilled. Loggers, fishermen, mill workers, snooze chewers. The only collar a stained, grimy blue. Book-a-white, New Aberdeen, Mississippi, but here he'd have sung about a port the climate splashes storm gray, where the soggy earth rots men as well as boards. No surprise that Aberdeen whelped Kurt Cobain, then spat him out to seek a grunge nirvana. No surprise the orange crayon dream scrawled in disconnect as water fell like swords among the wicked. The mud-caked seed blown willy-nilly far from the anchor chain. It's always been about the big trees on the Olympic Peninsula. First the felling, then whether to preserve and how much. Always a war between the bottom line and a federal line, or no line at all. Except for the national park, resented because virgin forest mocks the saws, their owners' gnarled hands. From Aberdeen to Forks, nothing heaves into view but clear cuts ravaging the landscape like eczema. Yet even piles of timber slash among stumps where foxglove now thrives without the canopy skews this picture. Like the buffalo hunters who shot their way out of a job, out of a life, loggers have booked their passage. God, guns, Chevrolets. Look for signs in Aberdeen of the old sustaining faith. Listen to the rain as termites raise the foundation. Thank you.
Robinson, are you ready for a couple more? Okay, and then after Robinson, Mary Crane and Julene, if you want to get ready and jump up here and do a couple of quick poems, that would be great. Here he comes, Robinson Bolcom.
Another on paint. Shadows of slumber diminished another day's care. But we had been speaking of paint, had spoken of paint in terms of stage makeup. And you might object that the subject should take up a third of the poem preceding, in serving the purpose of needlessly leading to speaking of breeding, unsubtle seduction, unstructured instruction on function of unction and suction, in keeping with cheap reproduction. You don't see the reason an author should awkwardly call on his audience to gawk and guffaw, to balk at the raunchily, raucously raw, all for the gall of his tawdriest bawdience. You ask if it's too great a task. Why the hell can't I tell us of Buckingham Palace without chambermaid in a braid and brocade ever hungrily fumbling untucking some phallus? Perhaps this is Wonderland Alice's goal, to explore the what-for of her own rabbit hole. Entice the advice of a nice caterpillar that rise to a size quite surprising and glide by the inside of thighs that'd writhe and would quiver, and still for the thrill that it give her, that fat-hatted grub, so snub that'd fill her, was yet, though distended and wet, caterpillar. And that which pleased her till weak in the knees was of the marvel so larvally sprightly and, like Jim Carville, unsightly, that ravenous habit of teasing, appeasing by greedily feeding on leaves. Now to be too particular would be ridicular. So should the leaves that it nibble and tickle be dribbling, pickled and pink. What you think that the grub up and snub as it fed, it instead'd just rub as it nuzzle with muzzle the bud that'd scratch his own back over a head? As he sped in this gustily thrusting to climax enfolding in Dolby and jolting with impact that in fact and mass had surpassed that of IMAX. A reference was never, not ever so quaint in insisting the listener should list and grow faint. But now, ma'am, you should hammock each breast and get dressed. I'm impressed, but it's time I, in rhyme, address paint. Oh, and here's a warning. That last poem contains some adult content. This one doesn't. Poem number 264. Address paint. Shadows of slumber, diminished another day's care, and the very discussion of paint ran off of the canvas on which it began. Thus, it hardly imparted the art or the blessing of painterly saint, or her ways of confessing in subject, arrangement, and style. What she was about would undoubtedly not be without, was, like me, a devout pulchrophile. Unabashedly passionate action of hers would achieve, as I like to believe of yours truly in verse, an ebullient mirth pulchrophilic in oil, watercolor, acrylic. It is she, the unceasing aesthete in her touch, whose unspoken hope in the lush brush stroke would betoken some semblance evoking remembrance of such as Dutch painter extraordinaire Jan van Huysum, whose paintings you'd rate quite as highly sublimely unrivaled and eyeful to sight as I might my bedightedly trifling writing in rhyme, a delight both exciting and timelessly priceless. Yes, try as you may. They, the paintings Van Huysum, enticing the eye, I defy that you price 'em. Van Huysum you'd find, soon as I surpass rapt fascination with patterns of similar syllables, was of a mind. Intertwining detail, unfailingly seating receding minutiae, poised in a space where the placement would modestly serve composition by color and character, scale, its relative weight, and the texture suggested or lent by bent, its position in terms of the integral vegetal panoply, masterfully rendered. This, as it is and remains to this day, so stunningly captures, entraps an enrapturing elegance that, as the writer might say, look nevermore to this book, it's irrelevant, aping the painter whose paint has a way that it say that which I and my ink in this quill, though I try, I should think, never will. The next poem, 265, Never Will.
When my teenage son asserts humans as the only sentient beings, I counter with bird song. He speaks of logic. I pick huckleberries to soak in honey. He, scientific measurability. I, otters and dolphin. He parries back with Schrodinger's cat. I don't mention an ethereal blonde waif of a child who could read my dreams while sleeping. Small hands bearing the first of everything, salmonberry, raspberry, the earliest tomato, blue eyes focus past the stars. We meander through Huckleberry, through Einstein, racism, phrenology, suffragettes, the plague, the Constitution. We meander into human hubris. The broken ocean, the murdered planet fall too quickly off my tongue. Bitten back, I am grateful he no longer reads my mind like an open book. If he wanted to remember how, I'm sure he could. I lie awake at night, knowing my children too will die. I wear my father's sweater still, the color of Irish sheep, though he has been dead more than 3 years. I see him now in the portrait of me as a poet, his chin, his nose, his fine sand hair. Our eyes turn inward now. I am 1 year older than when he took his last drink. He would not be happy now I am no longer married, would rather write than work. I still sit in the woods. He remains my father, though I have lost the quality of daughter. It is my sweater now. Thank you.
Hi. Cupcake. He's a cupcake. One of those Father's Day specials. Chocolate with caramel drizzle across the top. Yum. Can't help but equate men with food. What new restaurant to try next? But dream cupcakes are only figments, small bites that walk away into sunsets, settling their baseball caps. Romantic, eating in candlelight across from the one who always shows. It's not true there's one man for every woman. Adam and Eve, only a metaphor. Double equations don't work outside of math. But somehow I found that one man in a complex formula where chemistry and heat equal alchemy. He's delicious. That's going to be in my book that's coming out next year. And here's another one that's in the book. Plain Jane. Always a plain Jane. The dork in the oversized plaid shirt. Knee-high socks and penny loafers. sans any coin. My hair stood on cowlick, country city girl. The hip kids raised me over, caught me picking my nose. If those had been healthy times, the wholesome embroidered fabric absorbing the dirt from the crevices. If only the grains fell into place, a happy everything. A father still intact, fast-forwarded to a future where Hodgkin's cancer had a cure, and future into a world beyond the death of Kennedy or MLK. But all that everything too much to even hope for. The skirt got a blood stain that never washed out. There were never enough answers back in the past for a plain Jane, bewildered, wondering what her story might ever turn into. I'll do one quick short one. This one is coming out in Motif 2, which is an anthology, and the subject is chance, and it's on its way in the mail. I'm waiting for it. So it's called One Sperm. One sperm from the millions produced races to enter the egg. If it's missing the fickle Y, it creates a double strength X, and a woman is born. A lifetime of eggs done.
Thank you, Mary and Julene. Next up is Tiffany Midge. She's the recipient of the Diane Decora Poetry Award from the Native Writers Circle of the Americas for her collection, Outlaws, Renegades, and Saints, Diary of a Mixed-Up Half-Breed, from Greenfield Review Press. A recent chapbook is Guiding the Stars to Their Campfire, Driving the Salmon to Their Beds, from Gazubi Tales. She holds an MFA in poetry from the University of Idaho, lives in Moscow, Idaho. She just won the first prize of the Raven Chronicles Travel Essay Contest, and the winning work has just been published in the latest and greatest issue of Raven's Chronicles, Wish You Were Here. We don't have to wish Tiffany is here because she is, and she'll read for us right now.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mary. Hi, Jim. It's nice to see you. I have a couple of pieces. They're companion pieces. And the first one is called The Cut. And I wrote this after my boyfriend practically cut his top of his finger off in the kitchen. That was the last time he ever cooked, really, for me. Very dramatic. The Cut. Last night, when you sliced through the top of your finger-cutting lettuce, when your blood-flushed chrysanthemum red, and I thought of arterials in flight, the cry of some dark bird in distress, and when you bit hard on the rolled dish towel and I wrapped a tourniquet of black ribbon to staunch the flow, and retrieved the wingtip of your finger from the nest of greens, secured it gingerly back to your wound, the sink filling with crimson. And after we applied the pressure gauze, taped you up cozy as a swaddled newborn, it occurred to me then, giving in to the rind of hysteria in that dim light offered from the kitchen bulbs that spectrally clicked on and off. It occurred to me then that love is a kind of cut, a kind of violence, a creature of imminent precision who knows how fierce such blood flows, the red sash of it running thick and deep, pouring forth indelible as India ink, sweet and sharp, a saint's prayer, a creature without self-regard or reasonable expectation that cuts to the bone and severs the distance between two oceans, leading you toward a radiance, a wild immersion into the throat of some gold being you begin to recognize as yourself, as the other, a bloodletting, a letting go, a rescue, something exquisitely, incandescently cut loose and blooming. Okay, this one is called The Draw, and it's about a visit to Nimipu Health Clinic for my regular blood draw. There must be a name for it. My sensual preoccupation with a phlebotomist in training, some fetish or disorder, a sanguine fixation. Because when his brown hands, so soft, introduced their warmth to my skin, and despite my veins newer targets to excavate, flesh diminished to dull parts, blood just a pool from which to draw, an attendant science. Despite this, I am a devoted patient, one who considers needles a kind of love charm, instruments of affection, because it's been years since I've been touched, except in this way, in a clinic's room, white to sugar. And it's been years since anyone has drawn my blood, eased my heart's gravity, finessed its submission, except in this way, his hands so soft, grazing the inside of my elbow, the tourniquet stretched taut, waking the vein, that blue pulse, and then the pop, the sucking, a kind of kiss, the clench of fist, a whisk of tape and gauze as I descend, become an open palace, a collision of vessel and nerve, when hours later the results appear, the needle's sharp bite, its rigid tension, the blistering afterglow, a concupiscent bruise that lingers so soft for days. And this one's called The Monster's Bride Questions the Motives of Her Creator. And it's gotten quite a lot of play in the last year and a half. It was nominated for a pushcart, and then it's in another anthology, and I think it's being republished in something else, but it seems like every time I turn around, it's somewhere else. The Monster's Bride Questions the Motives of Her Creator. Those plugs jutting out from her neck, she's curious. What are they for? The fiery thoroughfare of crisscrossing scars from temple to jaw, brow to ear. Should she look for something implicit there? One eye brown, pilfered from an orange-haired prostitute in Potter's Field, the other fixed askew in her head, a child's like new ornament. Is he a misogynist? Did his mother abandon him? One arm, the muscular backhoe of a field worker, is connected to a jagged star of a hand. She wonders, is she expected to work? The vagina intact and pretty as a postcard sunset. Should she ruin it for him? The abdomen owns the legacy of multiple burrs, a miller's wife spitting out babes like peas. Is there room to grow more? What hair that's left is black as licorice, sparse on her scalp like a locust-run crop. Does he secretly love his sister? Her dresses, hung in the closet like sides of beef, taffetas, crinoline, colors of esplanade sherbets. Should she dance for him? At night, locked in her chambers, she hears desire's low growl, smells iron, lust, rain. What does it mean? Is it for her? And this one's called Miss Borden's Account. You might be able to guess which Miss Borden that I'm referring to. Whack, whack, whack. Okay. Miss Borden. Who? Miss Borden's Account. Only the wallpaper, yellow cabbage roses trimmed with larkspur, can say. I was, of course, indisposed during the awful business, eating pears in the carriage house. That's how it went over. 12 stern men, incomprehensible, a proper lady of distinction born into a family of textiles and cotton to think it. Looking over the damage, I thought, how curious, such winsome blossoms, the blood dappled athwart Abby's eiderdown quilt. She'd scream if she saw it. 14 blows to father in the sitting room, a spectacle, his head lolling about on the fainting couch like a crushed melon. In the seance, Miss O'Dea relieved my burdens, my misgivings licked clean as a cat. But I knew the ghosts were talking, voices whining like distant violins, a dissolve of mist, compromising my agency, telling me what to do. To have tipped back father's bourbon 10 thimblefuls, a right anecdote to such rancor harbored in my throat might have done the trick. But instead I took the tea, cheap and plain, because the picot had been misplaced, and I burned the dress, an indication of guilt, they said, and took a bath. Instead, I should have bought a hat, something with a sash of bright red ribbon. In the evenings now, on our stately porch, I languish, I wait, while overhead the geese drag the clouds like bridal lace, unwarned and ruined, bedraggled debris, such fatal flowers. And it wasn't 40. Apparently it wasn't 40, it was like 14. And they have a bed and breakfast. Sounds like a great place to stay. Seriously. I'd like to introduce Christopher Jarmick. He curates and hosts 2 monthly readings and is president of the Washington chapter of PEN and the PEN USA board member. He has published numerous poems, articles, and reviews and interviews, and essays in print magazines, newspapers, journals, and online. His latest poetry book is called Ignition. Poem starters, sextuplets, septuplets, statements, and double dog dares, published in April of 2010. And last year he released a special limited edition spoken word CD, Radio Pictures, Oral Anxieties, produced by Entertainment Tonight producer Kevin Gershon and featuring Kristen Pulitzer Prize-nominated Los Angeles poet Michael C. Ford. Thank you.
And thanks everybody again for coming out and doing this. We're going to go right until about 7:30, and then there's going to be a band that sets up, and then we're going to do a short set at around 9 o'clock. So if anybody wants to stick around and enjoy the music and then come back for a short set of more poetry around 9, it'd be lovely to have you and give you plenty of time to look at this incredible artwork on the wall from my daughter, Natalia Jarmick. From the book, Poem Starter 301, a good start is what's important. Finish later. Poem Starter number 1. If you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. I ask, how much does war cost? I ask again and again, praying it is something we can't afford. Poem Starter 720. Kill poetry with blandness. Coat it into ivory tower oblivion. Don't make much time for it. Drink too much tea. Make up too many rules. Be too picky. Insist you've heard everything. Stop reading. Turn it. Innsbruck gout. Poem Starter 631. Thank you for the suggestion. I suppose you were trying to help, but I wrote it this way on purpose. So I'll ignore your advice on how to make it better, because it's good enough the way I have it. It's precious and special, and I can't possibly change a single word. But thank you. Faith. In 1997, shortly after her death, several letters written by Mother Teresa were compiled in a book, Mother Teresa, Come Be My Light. And in many of the letters in that book, she doubted the existence of God. So, faith. Mother Teresa doubted God's existence for 50 years. She grasped her faith like a prisoner of war, living daily on 10 grains of rice. Doing good works because a voice she knew she needed to listen to told her the poor in Calcutta needed her. In case there was a God, she would continue. And if there was no God, no Jesus, no Mary, she still needed to continue. It mattered. The lives she saved, the smiles she made, said so. She was doing God's work, even though Mother Teresa doubted God's existence for 50 years. Kids for sale. Kids for sale, kids for sale, 10 cents a pound, easy credit terms. Been turned down, credit problems, we don't know how to say no. Kids for sale, buy 2 and get the third one half off. Buy 5 and get 1 absolutely free. I've got 3. My neighbor has a couple. There's a seemingly endless supply by the school. We're listing them on eBay. Bid before 12 noon tomorrow. These are the best of the lot. They'll thrive in your good home. Downsizing. Everything must go. Don't delay. Act today. All sales final. Going out of business. Girls, boys, all kids must go. None left behind. Kids for sale. 10 cents a pound, easy credit terms. Poem starter, 11.5. I believe in the 11th commandment, nobody knows anything. Evidence is discovered nearly every day just how true this is. But then again, what do I know? May Day Prom 2009 for Natalia. Breathe in deeply, Dad. Tonight her prom. She spends the day coiffing her hair, getting her makeup just right, wearing the beautiful dress she took her time picking out, considering the earrings, necklace she would wear, preparation for an American ritual celebrating her official public entry into womanhood, her night to be pampered, to become the princess she often pretended not to be. She has accepted, conformed completely to this almost sacred dance. Her expectations so high, you know there will be disappointment. The fairy tale of being at this moment long on her mind. So many little things she has seen as a movie as she drifts off to sleep will not play out as perfectly as hoped. Will she be in the moment, let the evening unfold with its poignant imperfections? Will she smile when reality, different from her Technicolor big-budget dream, reveals its awkwardness? Will she be able not to worry about every detail, instead enjoy every second with the acquaintances and friends who soon will leave childhood behind? Will she regret something she should have done, or remember to be content she is exactly where she needs to be? Will she be compassionate with herself, understanding the blessing? I will it to be perfect for her in every impossible way, even though it marks her imminent flight from the nest. I know it won't be perfect, and she'll feel some disappointment. I know part of her will be on that bicycle so many years ago, but only yesterday, when she waited for my full attention. Watch me, Daddy, watch me. Now, I must not watch. It is her night, her appointment to keep. Be still and quiet. It will be okay. You will succeed. You have made me proud and full. Breathe slowly out, Natalia. Poem starter, 1728. Just think, someday, all of this will still not be yours. Poem starter, 1727. If assuming makes an ass out of you and also of me, do we make an ass out of an essence with assonance? Bad water. The sound of the ocean is supposed to soothe. I imagine it when I hear cars in the freeway, wind through the trees. Water is pure. It quenches thirst, calms, refreshes, passes through our bodies, filtering out impurities, revitalizes life. We are mostly water. It is in the air. It covers most of the earth. It's where life began, and it's where most living things still reside. We cleaned up some rivers, restored some wetlands. We learned about pollution, built treatment plants, but we let the Gulf get dirty. The pictures of sunsets over calm seas, white beaches, white seagulls, places we once breathed fresh ocean air. Now, the water's gone bad. The water's gone bad. Not a bowl full of cherries. I've had a revelation that life is like a cup full of noodles. Not just any cup of noodles, but Marichon instant lunch chicken-flavored caution hot. Hot cup of bland broth, cardboard-tasting ramen noodles, 8 peas, 12 corn kernels, 9 carrot slivers. Hot cup of MSG broth causes dull headache like 9 to 5 job. Styrofoam cup of quick caloric intake, salty. I have a method to tease with 3 spoonfuls of plain noodles and broth, and then to please with a bite that includes, oh, glorious, flavorful, sweet pea. Delicious burst of succulence, taste buds party, mouth chuckles because of tiny green treat. Conservatively saved sweet pea, only 8. Spark of life in salty, bland broth. Life is like a cup of Marichon instant lunch. More peas, please. Spack and Kill High. This poem is certainly not one about high school. That is the last thing I would write about. So this poem is not about high school. It's not. The jocks, the heads, the brains, the class clowns, the rejects, the black kids, 3. The Asians, the new kids, the babes, the cheap dates, the juvies, the retards, and the invisible ones. The rich, the poor, the upper middle class, and the ones we knew nothing about, but we heard things. The polite, the goofy, the hairy before their time, the virgins, the promiscuous, the perverted, the beautiful, the handsome, the polite, the rude, the ugly, the carpenter's daughters, the fat slobs, and the one with cancer. The people who ignored me, the people who watched my back, the people who betrayed me, the people who picked on me, the people I admired, the people I fantasized about touching, the people whose lives I wanted, the people who I felt sorry for, and the people I thought about killing, slowly. The embarrassing moments, the acts of cruelty, aggression, and teenageism in times too horrible or just far too dull to remember. This poem is certainly not one about high school. That is the last thing I would write about. So this poem is not about high school. It's not. Big dots. Flo and Eddie walked into a bar and Dick Dale showed them a surf guitar riff, but they knew they had to get to Pomona. It was a dream they had. Look, the waitress winked. I've got some new shag carpet at my place that needs to be broken in. She was ahead of her time. I knew there was no place I would rather be. No, wait, there was one other place. I needed to get there. I could do it this time. The top was down on my car again, and I raced along Pacific Coast Highway at that perfect mid-60s point in time. You know the intersection. I pulled over at Zuma and saw the girl with the polka dot bikini. I floated across the sand to her and could not have been more smooth if I was the peanut butter on the roof of Annette Funicello's mouth. I might have been. Anyway, I became the dots for a while. A couple more. This one is the one that's going to be in the Many Trails to the Summit anthology. That's October 2010. Undeniably Seuss. Oh, the places I would go and the things I could do and all the thinks I could think just to gaze upon your sneeches, smell your green eggs and ham, or to touch your yurtle. My mouth waters when I think of your ying or you and the gocks with the yellow socks, that mop-noodled finch. Oh, what I would do with your nasm of basm if given half a chance. Nothing can prevent this obsession I have, not Bipper or Skipper or Dinwoody, Slinky, Stinky, or any of the other Fuddnuddler brothers. Not the single files, Zunian Zucks, the Southgoing Zacks, Thidwick the Moose, the Queen of Quincy, or even the mayor of Whoville himself can control this zizzer, zazzer, zuzz of a wocket I feel that surpasses my longing for Little Lola Lop or the Right Side Up Song Girls, or even Yolanda, Waldo, Urenson. Now don't get all misfuddly-duddle on me or tell me I'm no better than a peeping Nurgle or I belong with Van Vleck the Vipper of Vip. Horton the Elephant and the Maisie Bird told me in no queet, quigger, or clots that my pre-pelt prue was made for your sneelock, and you can count your zummers that I won't be denied. I'll count 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish, win the butter battles, and cooperate with Sam I Am. But I'll hold your varooms, caress your yurtles, and walk woombus and wump with you down Mulberry Street if it's the very last thing I Terwilliger do. I like dead poets. I don't have to be nice to dead poets. If I'm bored with their poems, I can close the book and stop reading. They will never know. They do not ask me what I think of their poems. I don't have to give a drunk dead poet a ride home. They won't vomit in my car. They don't need cab fare. I have not been stuck with a dead poet's bill. I have not had to make excuses for dead poet's behavior. A dead poet has never stolen a phrase or idea from me. I like dead poets. Someday, I'll be a dead poet too. And I'll finish with poem starter number 227. Slinky walks downstairs, rests, waits, waits, waits. Thank you very much. And do take time to look at Natalia's artwork. I don't know, Herb, did you want to get up here and read a couple of things? Okay. I think we need to wrap up, so if Herb gets back here in time, we'll have him come up to do a couple, and if not, then they'll do their thing here, and we'll have music and all that. But do take a few minutes and look at Talia's artwork if you haven't had a chance to do it. And like I said, feel free to come back or stay and listen to the music, which will begin around 8, and then we'll have some more music and poetry at around 9. Enjoy. Up, here's Herb. Herb, get up here and read a couple of quick poems, and then we'll close this thing down. Thanks, Herb. Herb McLeese.
It's been a long time since I've read here, and I just wanted to start off by saying that I'm humbled by the art, because they're like poems ready to be made. They're like, as a poet, I'm seeing something that hasn't quite happened in poetry, and so that each of those to me are like poems started, the beginning of a poem. And poets, of course, always struggle to have to end something, and I have to wonder if somehow by trying to end something or sum it up, we ruin it. So she has the ability to show something that's at the beginning. Anyway, I think I'll read. The Kingdom of Words. At dawn I explore you with the back of my hand, hoping to reclaim by gentle caress territory already lost in our kingdom of words. Already they desert us, words and messages, yours and mine, save our old servant. Touch. With your message, I am thine. Upon news of the enemy's advance, faithful touch brings a living prayer and hope for communion when all words fail. The enemy will not parley. Our kingdom may be lost. But if we must surrender, know this: while they can hold us incommunicado, we're already free, holding each other totally. One more. I think this is number 9. Oh well. Pardon me while I hunt this one out. Well, since you were so grateful for the last one, with your pause, I have to read a poem called Applause. This is as racy as I get, by the way. The lines we spoke in our traveling play were not our own. Our glistening bodies spoke for us without touching, joined under the tropical sun. For weeks we toured town to town, mostly waiting, hot days and humid nights without rain, performing under slow-turning fans. Reviews were at best mixed, and so after a steamy performance, we bid adieu, hand in hand to an empty house and the applause of rain on a metal roof. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for being here, and a big applause for Soul Food Books, Clint and Sarah and Taylor and whoever the hell else is working their you-know-what off. So, about a half an hour to music.
Thank you guys so much. Have an awesome night. Thank you so much. Okay, I guess just one more.